Welcome to the third episode of SnapCast.
That's right. Third episode. We are still in our infancy over here at the SnapCast podcast. And man, are we excited today to talk with you guys about some cool shit. We were just having a conversation over here. And Brad and I get so fired up when we start talking about stuff. We're just like, you know what? Let's just turn the mic on. I don't even know why this mic just isn't on as soon as I walk in the door, Brad. Like, we really ought to... We just have some interesting conversations.
If we did that, there'd probably be a lot of editing involved. I think we already lost our PG-13 rating last week, so...
Perfect.
We'll start over. You mentioned my name. I'm Brad O'Brien. I'm joined by...
Michael Cooley.
And we like to talk about Magic cards. We like to think about what cards are going to get played, how they're going to get played, and how that's going to impact their value. Both monetarily and just as a collector. I'm a little bit of both. I like to dabble in the finance stuff, but I also just like to get cards before they spike. And I think that's what we're looking at today, because with all the new spoilers from the upcoming set, Thereos Beyond Death, there is some crazy stuff out there. I've been doing my thing of listening to a bunch of the other content out there and catching these little hints dropped by other content creators that just trigger me to think, oh man, I wonder if anybody's thinking about this card now.
Yeah. There's so much stuff from this new set that's so exciting, and it just plays in so well with some mechanics that you might have forgot about, or that it draws a whole new light to some really cool stuff. So we'll talk about that today. Brad, you had mentioned doing a segment in this podcast, which this sounds like it's going to become a thing.
I'm hoping. Yeah. I don't. So we'll have to come up with a clever title, but for right now, it's just write this shit down, and that's going to be the name of the segment. And I want you to write it down, because today is maybe not the day, but there is going to come a time, and that time is known as rotation, where you want to pick up a whole slew of certain cards, because they're going to be at their lowest when they're no longer seen in standard, and we know that these cards are going to have play in eternal formats. And most of the people that are talking about MTG finance or speculation will tell you Commander is the place where cards go to grow.
And rotation is the time to get them too. Like, I know some people think, maybe I should get them before rotation, far before rotation. People are going to realize before then. Trust me, I've been in this game a while, all right? And rotation, always the time to get cards. I did the same thing with Walking Ballista when it rotated out, Snapcaster, all of those have never been lower than that after rotation. That was the lowest they'd ever been, within reason, and I don't think they'll ever go back down to that price. So it's definitely well-named segment. Write this shit down, buy it at rotation, scoop it out of all of trade binders. That's when you want to pick it up.
And I will add the caveat that I am certainly guilty of seeing cards that I know are going to be $1 less at rotation, but if I see them in somebody's trade binder and I'm trying to even out a trade, I will look to these cards when, if it's a $2 card now and I know it'll probably be $1 at rotation, I'm just going to take it, because my thought is, and specifically the first card that I'm going to point out for this write shit down segment is Golos.
Golos.
I had Tired Pilgrim.
Yes. Golos Tireless Pilgrim, right?
Yeah.
I had not even heard of this card until you pointed it out to me literally 10 minutes ago. And as soon as I read it, I was like, what? There's nothing bad about this card.
There really isn't anything bad about this card. And comparing it to some of the other 5-color commander cards that are out there, this is a colorless legendary creature that has Wooburg in its text box, meaning you can run a 5-color deck with this in Commander, but it's not asking you to do anything special. The Ur-Dragons, the Slivers, the even Morophon, all of these other 5-color commanders. Who's the Tazri, the general, the ally? I think it's
and he allows you to play 5 colors because of what's in his ability.
Yeah.
It's the same big surprise that happened with with Memnarch when, you know, you figure out he's a blue commander. Like, anybody who has any colors in their abilities, you know, with the exception of not exploit, the one that you pay a black and a white when you play a spell.
From like the second Ravnica set.
Yeah, if the color is not in the rules text of the ability, then that color is in your commander's identity as well. So this will allow you right here.
What is that? I want you to lose a life and I gain a life.
Yeah, you pay 1 black, 1 white. It's called
Extort.
Extort, yes.
Nice.
Yep.
So anyway, Golos Tireless Pilgrim is a 5-color commander card that is not asking you to commit to a tribe. It is not asking you to commit to a theme. It comes down on 5 with any color mana spent to play it. It allows you to search up any land in your library and put it into the battlefield tapped. Okay, great. If you can untap and play your 7th land, provided you have built your mana base in the correct way, to have Wooburg, which is all 5 colors of mana, plus 2 of anything else, Golos will allow you to play the top 3 cards of your library without paying their mana costs.
It's insane. And with cards out there like Sylvan Library and Miri's Guile in green, you're ramping in a deck like this anyway. Like when you look at Morphon...
Are you saying you're not playing him on 5?
You're probably playing him on 4. At least, you know, it probably as early as that. I can see this in a very big, like, green-based deck that can reach for cards of, you know, mana of any color in forest-based lands or whatnot. And it just allows you to play some really big, busted cards for... you know, a very efficient mana cost on an ability. Like, you know, if you look at Morphon, it's like you said, it kind of puts you in to a tribe, or it puts you into some certain style of building your deck. This just says, you're probably ramping anyway. Here's another ramp when I come into play. And, you know, because in 5-color decks, you're working on building up your mana base anyway. You're really trying to diversify it right from turn 1. So this just plays really well with that. And anything that you can do to manipulate the top of your library, you know, even cards like Thassa, Goddess of the Sea, or whatever, being able to scry, you know, is so good. You know, stuff that just allows you to constantly see, you know, the top of your library for an efficient mana cost. That's also, you wouldn't mind hitting off of that creature's ability. Like, I wouldn't mind hitting a Thassa off that. I'd jam that in that deck. You know what I mean? Helps you with what's coming. You know, if you want to, you know, either draw it or, you know, cast it with its ability. You know, it helps you out, and it's just it's a bomb in and of itself.
And I'm just thinking, you know, this inherently, the only thing that it really says is you want to get value off that activation. It wants to put a land into play. This wants to play big stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just saying, that one time where you pay 7 mana and you flip over Emrakul and Ulamog, you know, the whole table's going to hate you, and it's going to be the best day of your life. So right now, looking at TCG Player, their market price for Golos Tireless Pilgrims, about $2.50. It's an in-print rare. And again, if you can trade for these now, I have no doubt that years down the line, this card is going to probably be 4 times that. But at rotation, you might get this card for $1.
Yep. I could see this in people's like bulk rare binders or bulk rare collections. They just, you know, plan on bulk into a shop or you know, sweetening a deal with right there. But I think it's so much more valuable than that. That's a good pick for the Write This Shit Down segment.
Write This Shit Down segment. I kind of hope that name doesn't stick. Second card that I feel falls into that category, and it's right now it's on TCG for about $1.45. And that's Gadwick the Wizened, who is a blue legendary human wizard.
Now, is it wizened or wizened? He's a wizard, man. Maybe he's all whizzed up. Wiz Khalifa over here.
Perhaps. Gadwick the Wizened.
I really don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
And I'm thinking like now it's probably a really dated reference for The Wiz, which was the Wizard of Oz remake that featured Michael Jackson in the 80s.
What? I had no idea.
You've never heard of The Wiz?
I had no idea this existed.
Yeah. It was sort of like the hood, more urban retelling of the Wizard of Oz.
That's sweet.
Gadwick the Wizened is a 3/3 for 3 blue human wizard. But wait, there's more. His mana cost is actually X blue blue blue. Whenever he enters the battlefield, you draw X cards. That's also not all. Whenever you cast a blue spell, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. So
he's like a Sphinx's Revelation that stays around and does some nasty shit when it's on the board.
Exactly. Or some folks, newer players might think of Pull from Tomorrow, which was X blue blue, draw X cards, and then you discard a card. So with Gadwick, if you paid 1 mana, and so you paid 4 for this, it would be a 4 mana 3/3 that draws you a card. That's pretty good. He also has that on the battlefield effect of tapping down permanents whenever you play another blue spell. Pull from Tomorrow, if you paid 4 mana into it, you would draw 2 cards and have to discard a card.
Right.
And you get no 3/3, and you get no other effect.
Right.
If you put 4 mana into Sphinx's Rev, you draw a card and gain a life.
Right. I think this card, much like what you were saying earlier with the playability and the play value from this card, I think is far greater than its value, its monetary value. I'll tell you what I mentioned before we turned the mic on is that I don't see it spiking anytime soon, though. Like, because if you look at cards like Sphinx's Revelation or the other one, I'm going to forget.
Pull from
Yes,
Tomorrow.
Pull from Tomorrow. They weren't ever really worth a lot, even when they were in Standard, when they rotated out. Sphinx's Revelation now is worth a bit more because of Pioneer. It's really big in blue-white control, and some other variants. But it wasn't ever really worth a ton, However, we've never seen one like this in creature form before, and especially that kicks around and has all of these other awesome abilities. Like the unknown factor about this card is what are they going to spend to deal with that card when it's on the battlefield? Like, are they going to waste a Path to Exile or whatever other removal spell that they have, or is it going to get in the way of a whole bunch of chumps that they have on the board, and provide that for value? And then the longer they let it kick around there, the more they're just gonna get tapped down, and the playability of it, I think, is very comparable, if not greater, to Sphinx's Revelation and Pull from Tomorrow. And I'd be very interested to see what that goes up to in price.
Now, and just for historical context, Sphinx's Revelation now, after multiple printings, copies are going anywhere between $5 and $10, depending on the version where you look. Pull from Tomorrow, $1.50, $1.30. So it's very interesting. Obviously, Sphinx's Rev has the OG cred. Gaining life in a control deck where you're like, okay, I want to draw 4 cards, gain some life, stave off, live for another turn, do it again, is a really famous play. Pull from Tomorrow doesn't give you that buffer. But Gadwick says, so if you play Gadwick with 5 mana up, or 6 mana up, and you just draw 2 cards, and then you opt when they go into combat, you could gain back that 4 life that Sphinx's Rev would have bought you.
Oh, for sure.
Pretty easily. So
the one thing that Sphinx's Rev and Pull from Tomorrow have that Gadwick doesn't have is that flash style ability. You know what I mean? Or there are instants that you can play on your opponent's turn. But I was just thinking, what if this whiz kid over here had flash? I think that would push it over the top. So you're kind of committing to a game plan on your turn with it, which could make a difference. But I think with both of those cards, with Pull from Tomorrow, with Sphinx's Rev, you're just, like you said, trying to stave off. So, it's no secret when your opponent has creatures on the battlefield and has a board built up, and you have a shit ton of mana open and you pass the turn, like when you're playing blue-white control. It's not like it's a surprise when you get Sphinx's Rev'd. You know what I mean? You kind of saw it coming. So, just one of those things. Gadwick just says, okay, I'm just going to do it on my turn and, proactively get in front of this.
I think there probably are a lot of other mono blue commanders out there, but I think you could do worse than Gadwin.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
What's gotten your big toe to shoot up in its boot?
Well, besides you, Brad, you know, I really like, you know, some of the things that you put on this list. I see one big one here that I took an affinity to as soon as it was printed.
Yes.
And I was bragging this card up so much, and it's now made your write this shit down list, and I'm so happy about it. It's called Scheming Symmetry. And if for those of you who haven't heard about it before, it's a 1-mana sorcery. It's just 1 black, and it's a tutor. You know, a lot of tutors have restrictions on them that, you know, restrict what you can go for. This just says, choose 2 target players. Each of you search your library for a card, put it on top. That's insane. You know, especially the reason I was fired up about it in the first place was because my pet deck for a long time has been Modern Mill. I've loved Modern Mill. It's never really been great. It's an interesting meta breaker every once in a while. But I was freaking out about this card when it was printed. I was like, this is exactly what Modern Mill needs, is a way to make your opponent shuffle their library or search their library for your trap cards for, it sounds like we're playing friggin' Yu-Gi-Oh over here with trap cards and all other shit, but you know, for your archive trap that mills your opponent 13 cards if they search their library for free. You know, you pay the 1 mana on turn 1. I remember I got a kid to scoop at a tournament once. I turn 1, Scheming Symmetry. He had to search his library and put a card on top. Instantly milled him for 26 with two archive traps. Half his library's gone. He loses some very important cards. He's on scape shift.
Yeah, some very important cards lands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that turns on other things in your deck. So,
Yeah.
So that's... I remember you talking me up about this card when it came out.
What's this card at in price right now?
This card right now...
$2.
$2.
Yeah, that's what I bought him at, like, I don't know, a month or 2 ago.
And it will probably... You know, this is another one. At rotation, does this go down, or is this such a unique effect? And an affordable tutor for 1 mana black tutors. Like, in Pioneer, we'll say now. I would like to say in modern Magic, but in recent years, they haven't printed a whole lot of tutors. And so for a 1 mana tutor, this is probably as low as it's going to go. I will tell you why it made my list.
I'm anxious to hear this.
And I will always try and give credit where credit is due. I consume a lot of MTG content. I love the jank brews of Mr. Saffron Olive. And he was playing a Colossus Hammer like combo deck where he was playing a couple of really derpy creatures that incidentally milled your opponent.
Oh my god, like the Devour people, not Devour, the Ingest
no,
swingers? Or...
actually he was playing the new Adventure Merfolk that mills your opponent for 1.
Oh wow.
It's like an 0/4 for 1, but you can also cast it as a spell for 1 blue. Merfolk Secret Keeper, I think.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't actually think that I'd be talking about the deck. Hold on, we're pulling it up here in Gatherer. And we're saying, so Venture Deeper, 1 blue sorcery, target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard.
Oh, Jesus.
So he would say, turn 1, play a tap land, go. He was playing a budget deck. Turn 2, Scheming Symmetry, go get Sigarda's Aid and put it on top of his deck. And then Venture Deeper, mill whatever they went for. On turn 3, he'd untap, play his 3rd land, play Sigarda's Aid, play the Merfolk Secret Keeper creature, and pass. And on their end step, flash in the Colossus Hammer.
Oh
with a 10-14 creature.
Oh, yeah. You know me from some of the conversations we've had before about the hidden abilities of cards, right?
Yeah.
Where, so for example, one that I've talked about before, I'm a classic Affinity player. I played that deck for so long. And one of the hidden abilities about a card called Steel Overseer, I remember talking with you about this, is that it tells you what your opponent has in their hand. You know what I mean? Like, you either have removal or you don't. And if you had it, you would have used it right here.
Right.
You know
Before
what I
I
mean?
untapped.
So it's like the hidden Thoughtseize ability. Like, what do you have in your hand? You know what I mean? Oh, you passed the turn back to me. That's beautiful. Like, I have some man lands I can man up at any point. I know you do not have removal based on what's on the board. So, like, so it's this, Scheming Symmetry, I think, also has the hidden ability to it where you can really keep your opponent guessing as to whether or not you're going to fuck with the top card of their library. Like, that's what I noticed when I put it in Mill and took that to a tournament. People would always when I would play Scheming Symmetry, I just next leveled some people with it. Like, when I had nothing to mill, you get them fearing that Scheming Symmetry and trap.
Yeah,
and before you know it,
top.
Before you know it, they put some card that they don't need on the top of their library. You know what I mean? And if you get real good at reading your opponent, you can tell when they did that, and then you can just pass the turn right back and make them draw it. You know what I mean? It's like a hidden ability where you can make your opponent work against themselves. It's really, and if you put it in a deck like this where you're milling, what they put on top or whatnot, it's just that hidden ability where they're always guessing, like, am I going to lose this card or not? Like, at what point do I just shuffle my deck, pull a random card from it, and put it on top? Like, it's just so interesting, this card.
So this would definitely be on my, if you see it in somebody's trade binder, or just write this shit down, come rotation, look for these. I would say put this in the back pocket of your mind, or write this shit down, so that later on you have this list to look at rotation. That what were all the cards that Mike and Brad talked about that we should scoop at rotation?
Scheming Symmetry
should definitely be on that list.
So far we've got Golos, Gadwick, Scheming Symmetry, and it looks like you have at least one more here on the list.
So this is not necessarily write this shit down. This is not a card for rotation. This is a card for playing in the upcoming Thereos Beyond Death standard.
Very nice.
Before I finish that thought, you said something about playing in tournaments, and one, I'm gonna not so humble brag that last weekend I top 8'd a local Pioneer 1K.
Woo! Round of applause for Brad.
Playing the mono black aggro deck.
Hell yeah, man! Pioneer
is killing. It is very healthy. I saw a lot of cool decks that day. I saw paradoxical outcome decks. I saw a lot of green-red decks, green-white decks, a whole lot of black-white mid-range decks. I was really afraid that I was going to see all the top-tier decks, like everybody was going to be playing mono black or everybody's going to be playing blue-white control. Now, to be fair, 3 out of 8 in the top 8 were playing mono black, and two were playing blue-white control. But that's still pretty good. Like, there are always going to be decks that rise above.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed in Pioneer is that the Delve cards are not broken. Not yet.
Pioneer, the Delve cards aren't broken. Interesting. Okay, so what do you got? I mean, yeah, you have Treasure Cruise in there, and if Treasure Cruise is being played, that's not banned. Delve is definitely not broken yet.
And that's my thought. So that segues us into Theros Beyond Death's escape mechanic, where there are so many cards being printed in this set that have a mechanic that allows you to play the card from the graveyard by paying a certain amount of mana and exiling a certain amount of cards. And most of these are creatures that are going to return to the battlefield with a better effect or some other effect than just when they entered. And I don't want to describe a bunch of those cards, because my point is, you can only do that how many times in a regular game of Magic? If a card says pay 4 mana and exile 5 cards from your graveyard, you have to get 5 cards in your graveyard.
Right. You have to be pretty efficient at getting them into your graveyard at that point.
And in formats where you could do that for Delve cards, which is something that we have a historical context for, what was the thing that made those work?
Fetch lands.
Fetch lands.
Fetch lands were big.
And that's what we don't have in Pioneer.
Absolutely.
To break the delve cards. You're not casting a Dig Through Time or a Treasure Cruise on turn 3.
Right.
Or you are really going hard in one direction, in which case if you're devoted to filling your graveyard to do something like that on turn 3, you're probably putting a lot of air in your deck. But looking at these cards that have escape, especially the multicolored cards, my thought is those decks are going to want Fabled Passage. Fabled Passage is our standard printing fetch land right now.
It's also just good to have Fabled Passage in a format like Pioneer, where you mentioned there are no fetch lands. There are no reasonable fetch lands in that format. And in a format where most of your decks are mono or 2 colors, you get a few 3-color ones out there, but they're basically 1 or 2 colors. This is an amazing card. This is the best fetch land you could ask for in decks like that, So this is like the fetch land to have right now. I'm surprised to see it at $16 right now.
And I would say this is not a cheap card. But I think this card is going to be a $30 card, or maybe even more, in the middle of Theros Standard.
Oh, for sure. I mean, look at Prismatic Vista, for example, as a comparison, right? Another fetch land that fetches a basic land. It's in Modern, of course. And granted, it didn't have Modern Horizons, the set that it was printed in, didn't have as big of a print run as the Throne of Eldraine. However, they practically do the same damn thing, and this is Prismatic Vistas, $22 right now. It's gone down from about $30. It was really big when it was printed, and it's a comparable card. You're seeing a Prismatic Vista in Standard right now in the form of Fabled Passage.
There's a little downside, and I think everybody that looks at the card knows that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go check on the wood stove.
Yep.
Keep our audience entertained.
For sure. While Brad's checking on the wood stove over here, I'll elaborate on my point of this being sort of a Prismatic Vista in Standard and in Pioneer right now. It's like he had mentioned. There's not a lot of fetch lands. This is a great way to get cards in your graveyard. Very efficient. And honestly, at $16, I said I was surprised to see it at that. Because I think as well, this card is just worth so much more than that. This may be one of the cards that you wait till rotation to pick up. It may also be at $16. Man, I'd be trading for these in every trade binder that I saw them in. There's just such it's so unique that it's rare that I think a card like this is going to get printed again, in similar form or fashion, in Standard. Like this is just or even in Pioneer. There's just very few cards that could look like this in form or function. So, a very good thing to stock up the graveyard. Very efficient. Just what a format like Pioneer or Standard really needs right now.
One thing I wondered was, and I don't know if they've said one way or the other. We're going back to Zendikar next year. After Theros is Ikoria. After Ikoria, is that the... I should be doing my homework. We've got the core set that's based on Teferi, and I think then we're going to return to Zendikar.
Return to Zendikar. Okay. I don't follow the storyline too much. I just get surprised whenever they print these nice, cool cards,
I just wonder if we're so accustomed to Zendikar having fetch lands, and I think that they're...
Do you think they're bringing them back in this set?
Well, thinking about what would make that graveyard mechanic escape work best is fetch lands.
Yeah.
And so I think if the escape mechanic tanks it will be because there aren't enough enablers. I think I'm trying to look at what comes out next. Thereos Beyond Death release in 14 days. Ikoria releases in 3 months. Corset 2021 releases in 9 months. And so it's literally a year from now we'll get the new
Return
Zendikar.
to Zendikar.
Yeah.
You know, this just popped into my head, and this could be a prophecy that we make on the Snapcast right now. I don't see why they wouldn't, if they're printing things like Fabled Passage, why wouldn't they, if we're return to Zendikar over here, why wouldn't you take, like, half a fetch land? If fetch lands are too broken for Pioneer, let's say they don't want to bring them into Pioneer, couldn't they just print a land that said, tap, sack, pay 1 life, search for an island, and put it into play? Instead of things like Scalding Tarn or whatnot that, you know, give you 2 card types to search from. I wonder if that's more or less broken. You know, well, it's far less broken. But, you know, I wonder if that may be a mechanic that they bring in. Like weaker fetch
So you
lands.
could get a steam vent or a hollowed fountain.
Right. But you couldn't, like...
You couldn't run 8 of them.
Yeah, you could.
Well, because you'd run 4 of the other one.
Right. But that's what I'm thinking. You probably couldn't run 8 of them efficiently.
Yeah.
You could run 4 efficiently. And then when you start tapping into too many colors, it gets hard to run fetch lands efficiently. You know, well, that could be a prophecy. That could be a prophecy made right here on the Snapcast, Brad. Weaker fetch lands. Fetch for only 1 type of land. That would be insane.
I like that better than the one other theory that I've heard posited was a land that you pay a life, sack it, and make a token land of a certain type. So there's no shuffling. Because, you know, that's the big thing that they hate about fetch lands in Standard and on camera, even though we don't see that anymore, is all this shuffling. You know,
Right.
when I go search for a land.
Right.
But if I could crack this land and make a token that's any basic,
That would be insane.
that would be insane.
Yep. It's really good, you know, because it would have to provide you some option of like a one type of land or the other. Otherwise, it's just no point in having it in there besides one of those lands in the first place. Like you couldn't just do that with like an island. You know what I mean?
Right, but if you were doing a multicolored mana base, which is often why you're doing fetch lands, if you had a fetch land that said, well, Fabled Passage, go get any basic. Prismatic Vista, go get any basic. But what if it just said create a token that is a basic land of your type, of your choosing?
Yep.
And then there's no shuffling.
Huh.
Still puts a card in your graveyard. You could probably get away with more 18 land decks.
Yep. Interesting.
So, but I think I like your idea of get
one land type.
One land type. Yeah. And not basic, but just one land type.
Right. Yep. I mean, or even if it did say basic land of that type, which is a direction they could also go, there'd still be value to putting it in your deck. There'd still be some sort of value to having it in there, albeit a small one. The traditional theory behind a fetch land is like you're diminishing the amount of land in your deck. You know what I mean? So there is that benefit, even if it does just fetch an island, a basic island. You know what I mean? But if they dumbed it down a little bit and just had it fetch that one type, you still could fetch your dual lands. You know, but you couldn't. The span of what you could fetch would be sort of limited. You know what I mean? Interesting.
There was a little nugget of play advice in there, people, which is if you're looking for lands, don't crack your fetches until after your draw step.
Yes.
If you need mana, you don't want to pull that land out of your deck before your draw step.
Nope.
Obviously, there's fine print on that. You do you. What else are we talking about this week, Mike?
Well, does that conclude our write this shit down segment?
Yes. Fabled Passage took us out of the write this shit down, and we're moving on.
All right, good stuff. You know, another thing to segue out of the write this shit down into something that really goes along well with dumping things into your graveyard for this new delve mechanic, but also delve in Pioneer, in the first place, is a card that you told me as a friend to invest in probably about a year ago at $1 and is now $4. I'm telling you got to take this guy's advice. Brad is insane at picking cards to invest in. That card is Stitcher's Supplier. It was 99 cents when he told me to pick up 20 or more of them. I was like, yeah, Brad, I don't know. It's an uncommon and it's M19 core set. Nah. This card's over $4 now.
Yeah. It's a 1/1 for 1 black creature type zombie. When Stitcher's Supplier enters the battlefield or dies, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. You play this on 1, you mill 3. It's a zombie. Where do zombies like to go?
They like to go to the grave.
Yeah. And so with your I think you're talking my language. This with those escape cards. Play this on 1, put one of those crazy 2 or 3 mana escape cards into your yard, have a chump blocker on turn 2 or 3, you're escaping a 6/6 Titan.
Wow.
I think
that's insane.
And I think what I saw in this card is the same thing you saw in Scheming Symmetry, which is open-ended utility. Zombie creature decks want to put cards in the graveyard.
Yep.
This card puts cards in the graveyard.
So efficiently, too. I mean, and let's not forget the fact that technically, right, in Pioneer, right now, technically, with this card, with the help of this card, you could technically Treasure Cruise turn 2. I mean, you could turn 1, dump this guy down, dump 3 into the graveyard, block whatever's coming at you the next turn, he dies, he goes to the grave, brings in 3 more, next turn, Treasure Cruise, pull your land or whatever you're looking for, removal spell, another dude, hell, another Stitcher Supplier, chuck him in there. There's so much possibility to this guy. He's out there, man. He's got, this is a new term I'm bringing to the Snapcast, Brad. He's got this ability, right? And it's a hidden ability, and we're going to put a name to it today. That hidden ability is called Ear to the Streets.
Ear to the streets.
He's got an ear to the streets, man. There's a lot of cards like this. We've kind of mentioned them in our other podcasts. They have an ear to the streets. And what I mean by that is that they have an inherent appreciation for cards that could be printed. You know what I mean? For a certain archetype or card type that may or may not have been printed yet. It just naturally plays along with it very well, and you may not know it yet. You know what I mean? It's just so general. The zone that it deals with or the card type that it interacts with is so general that it has an ear to the streets. Like anything that could be printed may interact with this very well. And it's just that hidden ability that I think makes cards spike that people don't realize. That hidden ability, man, ear to the streets. I'll also bring that up in a bit when we get to the segment where we talk about what we would suggest investing in this week. As with any cards that I talk about, they always got an ear to the streets, man.
That's your flavor. Well, so let's go there.
Yeah,
I think we're at that point.
All right. Well, okay. The card I would suggest this week. Let's move on to the segment that we've passively labeled "Snap This Shit Up." All right.
Snap this shit up.
Snap this
Write
shit
this
up.
Shit down. Snap this shit up. I'm starting to see a theme.
These are cards that I think right now at this current time you definitely want to buy them or trade for them or get them at the price that they're at. And that card for me this week is Karn, the Great Creator. This card is insane. He meets all of the criteria that I always talk about for investing in cards, right? He's got an ear to the streets, right? He's got the hidden ability. Now let me explain what I mean by that. So first of all, for those of you who aren't familiar, Karn the Great Creator is a planeswalker for 4 colorless mana. Fits right into any kind of deck you want to jam him in. 4 colorless mana, one of those static ability planeswalkers. The static ability is like a one-sided stony silence. Like your opponent's artifacts don't work. Right? Some of you might be familiar with the combo with Karn the Great Creator, where it's just -2. Choose an artifact card you own from outside the game, aka your sideboard, or in exile. Reveal that card, put it into your hand. so he can tutor for stuff. He is a tutor, if not by the very least, as soon as he comes out. There's been other 4-mana tutor cards that have seen play. I'm not saying warrantedly, but have seen play in like commander decks or whatnot for 4 mana. That's just very interesting.
Something I want to point out in that -2 that I don't think everybody instinctively gets. In Karn's +1, there's a specific word that is not in his -2. So in Karn's +1, he says, until your next turn, up to 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness. -2, you can choose an artifact card. That includes creatures.
Yep.
That includes worm coils or media golems or
Mycosynth lattices.
Mycosynth lattices if you want to be a dick about it. I traded mine away. My Mycosynth. I couldn't be that guy.
Oh man.
And I love this card. I've got some foils. I've got a nice Japanese copy. I'm in it on this card right now. You can get this card between $4 and $5.
Yep. And I'm seeing TCG right now at $4.07. This is cheaper than Stitcher's Supplier. Are you friggin' kidding me? This is cheaper than Stitcher's Supplier right now. Like, if someone came up to me and I was in a pinch for money and they were like, yo man, I'll give you fair market value for that Karn the Great Creator. And I'm like, oh, wait, how much is it worth? $4.07? You can get the hell out of town, man. I'm not giving you my Karn for $4.07. That's insane. This card is so good, and it's worth $4.07 right now. I have my playset already. I'm thinking about getting like 8 to 20 more. Like, you know what I mean? It's so good, and it's one of those cards that it has an ear to the streets. And what I mean by that is it's talking about a card type in general that it interacts with. Like, you can tutor for a certain card type. It doesn't say, a artifact card with, an ability that's tied to this set. Or like, it doesn't say an equipment artifact card. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just an artifact card in general. News flash, there's going to be some sick artifacts printed, in the future that we don't know about.
We just saw one.
Exactly.
We just saw what might be the best artifact equipment printing in I don't know how long.
Exactly. We'll get to that in a second too. That's another one that if that card comes out at the right price, you might want to snap that up right away. Sometimes the best time to buy a card is as soon as it's released. And you can pre-order them. For example, like Deathrite Shaman at one point was like a $5 buy. When it first came out, people scooped them up and like right away it was like $15, $16, $17. So sometimes you can make a good profit doing that.
Arclight Phoenix was another one that people just got
Exactly.
them for less than $1 because they were like, "Oh, another terrible Phoenix variant. This is awful. Nobody's gonna get that thing back."
Yeah. Lowest I saw that. Well, when they printed it, I remember Star City was selling for $6 pre-order for the Arclight Phoenix, and I still don't think it's below that.
No, it's not below that now.
Yeah, but yeah, the big one this week is Karn the Great Creator for many, many reasons. So not only does he have
An ear to the ground.
An ear to the streets.
Ear to the streets.
Ear to the streets. He's a homie. He's our homie. He's got an ear to the streets. He's got that cool ability that just interacts with a certain card type. Let alone, don't forget the fact, he's part of a very vicious, powerful combo right now that is legal in many formats. And not even banned. Not even in risk of getting banned anytime soon. Like, the Mycosynth Lattice Karn the Great Creator combo. And just to talk about that for people who are not familiar, Mycosynth Lattice 6-drop artifact, it says everything is an artifact. So when Karn's static ability turns off your opponent's artifacts, they can't use anything. They can't tap lands. They can't do anything with their permanents. They are shut off. So it's a pretty good soft lock on the game at that point. If you have board advantage, it's over. But another big reason for Karn the Great Creator being on my list is, much like I say every week, this is how I invest in cards. What card right now is easily accessible, cheap, maybe in standard, maybe not, that is all over Vintage and Legacy? Karn the Great Creator. He's all over it. You mean to tell me this card won't be $20, $30 when, in a few years when Pioneer has more options to choose from, when you have more sets, more artifacts out there? This is just an insane card. He's in some very vicious decks in Legacy. I'm not sure if you've ever seen Dragon Stompy before. It's sort of like they just quickly slam out big dudes. Maybe they Blood Moon you or something like that, and before you know it, everyone's playing with red mana, and their red cards are far better than yours. That's the style of that deck. It also fits right into Painter. I saw it in a Painter's list, which makes so much sense. You slam down a Blood Moon turn 1 or turn 2, and then turn 3, 4, you're slamming Karn the Great Creator. He's tutoring for the pieces of your combo. You can put that entire combo for Grindstone Painter's Servant in your sideboard and tutor it out with Karn. You could do that, or Mycosynth Lattice. He just has so many options that he already plays well with. I cannot believe this card is $4.07. I bought these at $8 or $9, and I still don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, because they have a higher inherent value than that.
Oh, absolutely.
The only thing that I will say, and I think it's good that we'll always have some counterpoint when one of us is looking at something like this. And I think you're right. I think Karn the Great Creator will be a $20 card, but I think we have no idea what the printing of all of these rare and uncommon Planeswalkers really means. Like, when Planeswalkers were mythics, you knew that was going to be a $40 card.
Right.
Like, if Karn had been printed at Mythic, it'd probably be a $40 card right now. And so how many of these are out there? I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I think War of the Spark in particular, actually, now that we've brought it up, the Nissa from War of the Spark. No, I'm sorry. Not Nissa.
I know what you're talking about. The Narset.
Nope.
No, not the Narset.
No.
It's also like a $2.50, $3 uncommon Planeswalker.
There's just so many of them. Is it Vivian? Champion of the Wilds. I really do think this is it. Let's see if I nailed it. I nailed it.
Oh, nice.
This is $1.68.
You're kidding me. It's a friggin' rare. 3-drop Planeswalker with 4 loyalty as soon as it comes out. Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. Static ability. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash. What the hell? I don't even care what the rest of it says.
Just a 3-mana enchantment that says you can cast creature spells as though they had flash. Okay.
Done. I don't even need to read the rest of this card. If it does anything else, it's busted.
That's worth a lot more than $1.68. +1. Until your next turn, target creature gains vigilance, and reach.
Ooh. That's sexy.
So...
Deals with the things that typically green can't deal with, flying creatures. Yeah.
Vigilance on your big, stupid monster that you can swing in with, and now somebody, even if they chump it, like whatever, you're putting them in the abyss, and you still have a blocker now with reach for flyers.
Jeez.
-2 lets you look through top 3 cards of your library, exile one face down. For as long as it remains exiled, you can look at it and you can cast it if it's a creature. Even if she's gone.
What?
Even if she's gone, you get card selection from her -2.
Hold on. I hate to go back to this. I gotta write this shit down. I'm buying this shit as soon as we get off this podcast, dude. I might even do it right now. That card is stupid.
There's just no way this card is going to stay $1.68.
That's insane.
And this is, I mean, this was 2 sets ago. This is going to be in standard for 2 more years, or another year and a half.
Yeah. Wow,
So-
this is still in the standard. What the hell? Yeah, I'm getting.
I don't
all
think-
these. I'm getting all these. You guys better get them now. Good thing this isn't live. Good thing
By
this
the
isn't
time
live,
this is
because
up.
by the time this is up, there ain't gonna be none left.
Yeah. There are copies on here for $1, but then they're like 80-cent shipping. So,
Jeez.
promo pack. Let's look at the
$1.22. There's one up there for $1.22.
pre-release foils between $3 and $4.
Get out of here, man.
I'm always foil guy because I'm always thinking about the most invested players love pimping out their decks. Commander players love pimping out their decks. And if So Stitcher suppliers, I bought a handful. I bought them as non-foil. They went from $1 to $4. We didn't look at foils. They probably went from $1.25 last year to who knows.
Hell,
what.
even if they were like $8.
Yeah.
Like, I guarantee they're more than that now.
So these, let's see, filters, foils. I hit it and then I turned it off again.
I don't think it selects. This is really weird. It's like not taking to your... He's clicking on the foil button over here and it's not checking off the box. Hey, there we go. Jesus.
Yeah, I had to massage the special little spot. Look at this. $3.
Get out of here, man. $3 for a foiled Nessa? Yeah, that's where it's at. NFC foil Vivian Champion of the Wilds.
We don't want that one. That's not factory cut.
Oh, yes. Okay, so, by the way,
Good
can
language.
we talk about that?
Yeah.
Because I just went on eBay the other day. Remember when we were
Sketch.
talking about investing in cards a couple weeks ago?
I
We
got
talked
your cards,
about...
by the way.
Oh, you did? Perfect. We were talking about Dreadhorde Arcanist,
Yep.
and I went on eBay, and I was like, what are the foils going for? The ones that popped to the top were, like, as the cheapest ones, like when I sorted it by price, the ones that popped to the top were these non-factory cut cards.
Yep.
What the hell? What are those? Like, I
Okay.
get it that they don't cut them through the traditional means. They get cut from a sheet by hand by somebody, you know.
Mythic edition.
Yeah.
So when they sold the boxes directly from Wizards, they tried it once from the Hasbro shop, where they were going to sell you a booster box, but 8 of those packs had a seeded special foil rare. There were these mythic editions or whatever. The sales were awful. So then they did it the second time, and they tried to do it through eBay. And eBay way oversold what they had printed. They had to cancel so many people's orders of this product. So, of course, WotC, Wizards of the Coast, is trying to make up to people. So what they did is they said, if you had an order, and eBay said, we've accepted your order and we've accepted your money, but the next day you got your money given back to you, and you got all those feel bads because you thought you got this very limited product, we're going to make it up to you. We're going to mail you out a full, rare, mythic, uncut sheet.
You're shitting me.
They mailed out hundreds of them.
You're shitting me.
I say hundreds. They probably mailed out thousands of them. It gets better. I listened to like the guys from Brainstorm Brewery talk about how they got one, it was damaged. If you received one and it was damaged, you call up WotC and tell them you got it damaged. Now, does WotC want to pay to have you ship that back? No, they don't. So you send them a picture of the damage.
Wow.
They send you out another one.
Oh my god.
So there are people out there that got 2 or 3 of these foil uncut sheets from War of the Spark.
This is insane.
So the market is going to be flooded right now with these not factory cut foils from War of the Spark.
So are they legal in tournaments? Like if I cut these out of a foil sheet like this, let's say I cut them right perfectly. Like I cut them, you know, are they legal? Can I jam
Yes.
those in a sleeve and play them in a tournament?
So if they can't tell, if they're indistinguishable, they're indistinguishable. If
God,
you have
that's insane.
square corners or rough corners, or you use your grandma's like wavy scissors from the craft room, and I have seen those friggin' cards for sale on Facebook where somebody literally took like a wavy edged pair of scissors and just put them on and said, hey, it is what it is. You
Yeah.
want it for your commander deck? And so here's a foil Karn, here's a foil Teferi, whatever it is.
Oh.
And so that's a little sketchy. But yeah.
It is. Let's go the other way with that, right? Like, let's say I did just take a pair of scissors and cut that friggin' thing out. That is a legitimate printing from Wizards of the Coast that has not been explicitly banned in a tournament. And here's the next level to this. They fuck up cutting their cards all the time. How many times have you bought a booster pack and like the corner was cut weird or it was still square? I bought one of those not commander sets but the planes chase sets once, and nearly all of the cards had square corners. Like they were cut on one side to be rounded. The other side was complete square corners. They were shifted. They were all kinds of messed up. I sold it for 4 times the amount online.
I was just going to
Like,
say, if a listener would like to purchase this, no, okay.
You know, so, and they're completely legal. Someone could take that, put it in a sleeve, even though it's not cut properly, that's a legal card. They could play that. Like, so what's to stop somebody from, like, what is the ruling to say, like, yeah, you cut this, but it's about what it should be, and it, you know, that should be a legitimate card.
Yeah, I think that I think you're going to get some grief for that, but it's, as always, at competitive events, whatever the head judge says, if the judge looks at it and says, this looks like a real Magic card to me,
Yep.
You're good. If they look at it and say, I can tell you cut this out of a sheet. This did not come from a purchased product or a printing that was intended for tournament play.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would assume, though, if you're going to cut those out, you probably want to cut them as accurately as possible anyway, just in case that situation presents itself. But
I've heard of people that have tried to go the route of buying a card punch that is standard size card punch, and you can lay it over the sheet and center the card right and punch it through, and you lose something like the card above it and below it. So you can only, because you have the way you get this block punch into place. And then there are other punches that you can just put on top of the sheet and hammer it around. But the amount of time and money, like to get a real good punch to do this, is going to cost you $60 or $80.
Yep.
You know, there's probably 3 cards on the sheet that are going to get you that.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, they get the sheet, they just want to frame the sheet.
Right.
Like, if I had a big foil sheet, that'd be right up in my living room.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wouldn't cut it up at all. Have you seen, like, the uncut beta sheets from back in the day and all of this? Like, oh, my God. I'm not even going to guess what their prices are, but you can guarantee it's more than, like, a Lotus or, like, more than, you know, any individual cards that, you know, for that whole uncut sheet. You know, so it could be a collector's item in and of themselves. Those could be. So I'm glad you explained that. I had no idea why it was like that. I got a little weary of them.
Good.
I think I would take a gamble on those, man. Like, I think I would take a gamble on those non-factory cut cards.
I think if you were playing them around the shop and they fit into some Dragon Shields, it's unless it's... There have been a couple of occasions where people have been called out for playing blatantly fake cards at our LGS.
Oh, for sure.
But that being a legit printing, I think, you know, there might be a moral quandary in there that I don't give a shit about.
Same here. How many times have you seen people, like, paint the edges of their card too, like with a Sharpie or something when they get damaged to make them look better? It doesn't make them not tournament legal. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't make them, like, there's a certain leeway that I think you have with the edges of your cards and, like, the amount of marks that are on your cards. And I don't think it's anywhere close to someone that, you know, legitimately takes a good size stamp and cuts, you know, perfectly sized stamp and cuts that out of a sheet. That's a legitimate card as far as I'm concerned. And hopefully, as far as any judges are concerned, at any tournaments I go to.
So let's see. What do we talk about today? NFC is not factory cut. We had some other interesting MTG lingo for your lexicons. Any other terminology we dropped on people today?
Ear to the streets.
Ear to the street.
Don't forget it.
Write this shit down. Snap this shit up. Thank you for sticking with us for another week.
Appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week.